Kaimeran is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Chimer. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Chimer, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna. Cryptids are animals, typically megafauna, which are believed to exist by fringe groups but are not accepted by the scientific consensus. On Earth, hundreds of these organisms are claimed to be supported by eyewitness testimony, dubious trackways, and blurry photographs, but usually these end up being cases of misidentification. A popular explanation for many cryptids is oral tradition maintaining stories of extinct animals. For all the strange and wondrous creatures known to Kaimeran scholars, not to mention demons and witches, the peoples of Chimer have plenty of mythical beasts and cryptids in their folklore. The Highlanders of Picardia claim that a giant serpent bird oversees the Great Lakes. The Kalin say that a great kraken, called Eshaluk the Eternal, is responsible for the currents and upwells. Kadrith farmers claim their livestock are harassed by horrid offspring of foxes, hares, and cockatrices, while the Shu speak of kangaroos with hands and faces of men who once taught them steelwork. None of these are verified by Kaimeran naturalists, but a popular explanation for many of these, like many Kaimerans on Earth, oral tradition passed down from when these animals were once common. Such is said to be the case of the hashika, Fangs grin in the shadows. In the folklore of the Arvelith beyond the Celestial Wall, the hashika is said to be a demonic child of an uku bear and garden ape. In some stories, they were the first beings of the forest. They are vicious creatures who hate the sight of human faces and hands, for these are said to be what separates beings from beasts, and will tear these features off if they catch a Kaimeran or hinterlands giant alone in the woods. In other stories, they strike at the genitals to prevent beings from procreating in a desperate gambit for these vengeful spirits to reclaim their forest. For centuries, this was dismissed by naturalists and historians of the Assembly and Great Library as a myth. A particularly disturbing myth, but legends often teach lessons, and there are plenty of threats in the forests of Arvel, so stories warning against traveling alone is a perfectly reasonable explanation. Also, bears with injured paws will readily walk about on their hind legs, and uku bears in general can be quite aggressive, so might be the origin of this myth. Although melanistic apes can be quite striking and mysterious, another possible explanation. Because of these rational dismissals, little academic thought was given to a distinct species behind the legend. This was turned on its head in the late 1800s when an assembly naturalist named Dr. Kurt Oberlander noted a geographic link between the hashika myths, fossils of primates in Qajar and Arvel, and the chimpanzee of Earth. Dr. Oberlander also noted that many homunculi specimens and depictions once thought to be comprised of garden apes instead show greater link to the chimpanzee. Later examination and studies confirmed that chimpanzees were indeed present in the Kadrith Peninsula and are among the many species culled by the first children on their conquest of Qajar. Their fossils have been found in the tropical forests of Arvel, though it seems the garden ape generally competitively excluded them to the temperate peninsula. Anatomical studies of various homunculi, and recently corroborated by genetic studies of preserved specimens, show that Dr. Oberlander was correct in his theory that the first children counted chimpanzees among their favorite subjects, alongside vampire bats, the lacoleo, big cats, deer, hyenas, sloths, and in later years the silent ones. Since most chimpanzees would have been culled in the conquest, and these homunculi predate the first children harvests of Earth, specimens may have been collected from Arvel and resulted in the already endangered species going extinct. In the earliest years of creating homunculi, these amalgamations had overt elements of other organisms grown from the base species, although the genetics have always been base on the host species. Assembly naturalists have compared it to the host species being the hardware, but also running software from other species. For example, The builder drone homunculus has the base of a hinterlands giant with the outward appearance of a Wojun sloth and chimpanzee. Class 1 homunculi like this show minimal blending, being coded for human cells to grow precisely like the organism they are told to in their entirety. Later eras refine these, and Class 2 soldier drones of the first children seem to derive little from their host body plan, although the internal structure was much more deviated, having pneumatized bones and air sacs of cockatrices, jaws and eyes of a hyena, and regeneration from planarians. Within the known world, the first children and most of their homunculi are distant memories, as are many of the animals they collected in search of ingredients. Most scholars think that the chimpanzees of Kaimeran are extinct. Re-examination of many fossilized Kodrith ape skulls, once identified as garden apes, have since been reclassified as chimps, and it is now widely accepted that the hashika was likely inspired by encounters with these apes and carried with the peoples off the peninsula as they fled Qajar during the Great Culling. Although these apes are gone as far as the scientific community of Chimere is concerned, they are survived in story and song. Rumors from westernmost Arvelith clans maintain that the hashika is very much alive. A skull recently presented to the assembly by a big game hunter, who claims it was found in an abandoned Rukel nest, does indicate that there are at least a few chimps which may have escaped the hunger of the first children. While some think this skull is from an earth chimpanzee smuggled into Kaimeran, if it is authentic, the specimen could prove that these mysterious and vicious cryptids are indeed out there, haunting the forests on the fringes beyond the known world. Thank you so much to Stonebone for sponsoring this episode. The topic of cryptids and folklore creatures in Kaimeran is very exciting to me. It can seem strange to think that in a world with so many odd and incredible beasts would have legends of supernatural beings, but people are defined by our wonder, and it should come as no surprise that Kaimerans also imagine their world being filled with things far larger and more terrifying than their rational scientists can quantify. Some of these cryptids are nothing but stories, but a few, like the hashika, can trace their roots to real animals, some of which may yet be awaiting discovery. That's all for today. Next week we will be learning about another mysterious ape, the gigantic Angaru. Stay fantastic, everyone. Cheers, folks!